Culver City. Beach adjacent. Formerly almost affordable. Good school district. Ballona Creek bike path. The public transit webpage has a reliable real-time route map, helping to offset the frustration caused by the lack of adequate buses. Proximity to the beach, the 10, and the 405. National Public Radio broadcasts from a modest office building across from Culver City Park, acting as a representative of the city, unpresumptuous and studious. Drew Barrymore's birthplace. Cosmo Kraemerwood's current residence. My neighbor's dog. His namesake supposedly lives in the city as well. A place that a little over 40,000 people call home. Culver City is a beautiful suburb with jagged borders that can only be explained by discriminatory lawmaking. The city was in fact initially built as a whites-only town and is still working to reconcile its nefarious past with people of color. Along the borders of the puzzle piece-shaped city are Los Angeles neighborhoods as varied as Crenshaw to the east and Playa Vista to the west. Crossing from Los Angeles neighborhoods like Palms to Mar Vista is hardly noticeable, but once in Culver City, there is a unique suburban quality that is maintained despite the immense amount of workers that commute into and out of the city. Long before European settlers arrived, the Tongva called the land home, likely enjoying the biodiversity in the 14,000 acres of wetlands that researchers at Southern California Water Research Project estimated were once there. So take that, Los Angeles is a desert people. One of their footpaths eventually became the 405 freeway. The Tongva had extensive trade networks, a balanced diet, a symbiotic relationship with the earth, and wondrous creation stories, likely inspired by their consumption of hallucinogens. Then the Spanish arrived, and the population of indigenous persons dwindled from thousands to hundreds. Alta California, then a part of Mexico, enjoyed a brief moment of independence. The gold rush brought the Americans, and California was part of the United States by 1850. Los Angeles was a lawless town in the second half of the 19th century. If you Control F brothel on the History of Los Angeles Wikipedia page, the word comes up 11 times in the section covering this time frame. The demographics of the city shifted during this time as well. Spanish cities are designed so that the wealthy and powerful are near the city center. The United States system of urban development placed the power elite on the outskirts of town. Hence the development of the West Side, Culver City, and Beverly Hills. Culver City's not-so-subtle early slogan was a model little white city, 1915. Exclusionary housing practices were enforced through deed restrictions or building estates on large plots of land to keep people of color from being able to afford to live in the newly developing town. The city is still working on reparations. Daniel Lee became the first black mayor in 2021. The man who spearheaded the development of Culver City was Harry Culver. Harry was an early 20th century real estate mogul, decorated soldier, horseback rider, swimmer, merchant, journalist, elected city official, loyal husband, coroner, he pronounced F. Scott Fitzgerald dead, and presidential appointee with humble Midwest origins. He can be found today reading the paper outside the Culver Hotel. Harry was a go-getter from the start. Young Culver was compelled to enlist in the military during the Spanish-American War. After his time in the military, he worked as a journalist for the Manila Times and later for President Taft in the Philippines, before returning to the United States. Inspired by Isaac Newton Van Nuys' ingenuity to name a city after himself, Culver announced his plans for the city at a meeting at the California Club in 1913, which is an invitation-only club like the one that Eddie Murphy ended up working at in Trading Places. Building upon the rural coastal plains outside the urbanization of the city, Culver City became an incorporated town in 1917 with a population of 530. With the slogan, "All roads lead to Culver," the appeal of the ocean breeze, a burgeoning movie industry, and good public transportation along the Pacific Electric Railway Red Line, the city quickly grew. Harry became inspired while watching the filming of a Thomas Ince Western on Ballona Creek. Culver asked Ince to move his movie studios from the Pacific Palisades to Washington and Culver Boulevard. Culver must have been charismatic because Ince agreed and co-founded Triangle Film Corporation. After some exchange partnerships, mergers, subsidiaries, stock purchases, or whatever it is that corporate owners do, Ince sold Triangle Studios in 1918, and it eventually became MGM Studios. Shouts out Leo the Lion. And is now home to Sony Studios. Ince went to work in Paramount Studio for a bit, but couldn't handle having a boss. He ended up buying some more land from Culver and built Thomas H. Ince Studios, less than a mile away from his original studio, on the lot that is now the Amazon-owned Culver Studios, a replica of George Washington's Mount Vernon home greeting passers-by outside the lot. Many of the movies from the golden age of Hollywood were filmed in Culver City. Gone with the Wind, Citizen Kane, the Star Trek pilot, the list goes on. Iconic. Those unfamiliar with the imposing list of movies filmed at 10202 and 9336 Washington Boulevard would scoff at Culver City's slogan as the heart of Screenland, thinking that title belongs to Los Angeles. But Harry ensured that his city earned that honor. Culverites had a bit of resentment regarding the lack of recognition and came up with another motto, where Hollywood movies are made. As bootleggers were doing their thing in downtown Los Angeles, Culver was making a name for himself out west, literally. As president of the National Association of Realtors, Culver needed a striking new office. So he and Charlie Chaplin decided to build a skyscraper halfway between Astoria, LA, and Abbot Kinney's resort on Venice Beach. Unlike Los Angeles, Culver City actually has a center, albeit nowhere near the geographical center. Today, the Culver Hotel's Art Deco looms over the busy pedestrians choosing between the excessive options for food, drink, and entertainment. The Culver Hotel was opened in 1924 and is the star of Huell Hauser's enthusiastic episode on Culver City. The residence has hosted some of the biggest stars of the 20th century like Frank Sinatra, Clark Gable, and Judy Garland. Speaking of which, there's much folklore about the Munchkins wreaking havoc in the hotel, sleeping three to a bed, throwing parties, and general debauchery. Despite their propensity to imbibe alcohol, a lot of the raucousness might have been embellished over the years, although they were regulars in one of the best bars in America west of the Mississippi, Backstage, where drinks are stiff, the employees are friendly, and the clientele is looking to have a good time playing trivia and singing karaoke. The hotel switched ownership over the years. John Wayne even supposedly owned it for a time after winning it in a card game against Charlie Chaplin. But the hotel fell into disrepair after Harry Culver's death in 1946. It became a tenement building for a period and was even boarded up and at risk of being demolished in the 1980s. With the rejuvenation of the downtown in the 1990s, the Culver Hotel officially made the National Register of Historic Places in 1997. Although with the decline of the Culver Hotel, downtown Culver became largely abandoned. Ivy Substation was a decrepit and destitute building for decades, aside from the occasional graffiti writer or transient huddled next to a trash fire for warmth. City officials were upset that the gateway to Culver City was an eyesore for those heading west on the three boulevards, Washington, Venice, and Culver, that led to downtown. The adjacent grass field, Media Park, was equally run down, with vagrants enjoying the freedom of being outside Culver City's strict police department. In 1993, after restoration, Ivy Substation was an event venue that cost $45 to $90 an hour to rent. It is now a performance theater. Media Park is still largely underutilized, but the heavy flow of traffic that runs alongside it on Venice and Culver Boulevards is likely to blame. Beyond the forgotten downtown, Culver City was pure 1950s Americana. Drive-in movie theaters, ice skating, bowling, one of Southern California's first shopping malls, diners, and a thriving middle-class community full of single-family homes. The demographics on the west side began shifting after World War II, becoming increasingly diverse. Development continued at the expense of one of the best mass transit systems in the country. The Pacific Electric Railway was shut down in 1951 to make room for automobiles, with the I-405 and the Santa Monica Freeway I-10 being constructed soon thereafter, destroying any communities that had the misfortune of being in their paths of construction. Much has been written about the small-town feel in the big city regarding Culver City, and it does still maintain some of that charm. But with big businesses like Apple and HBO surrounding the downtown, the rejuvenated intersection of Culver and Washington Boulevards, the reopened movie theater, and the Culver Steps, not to be confused with the Culver Stairs, the city no longer feels like a tight-knit community. Yet, despite the big businesses and the beautiful people that populate the area surrounding the Culver Studios, anybody can and should feel welcome in the bustling downtown. Culver City has been able to retain its small-town charm because there are only a few thousand more residents in 2020 than there were in 1960. Nowadays, below the Culver steps, you're liable to see children cartwheeling on the AstroTurf lawns with young families enjoying the relative tranquility of the area. Dogs walking by with several admirers sitting on the steps, guitarists and steel drummers, indecisive people spinning around trying to choose from the abundant food and entertainment options, non-drinkers lining up around the block for the award-winning ice cream at Salt and Straw, first-time visitors unsure of where to find the ample parking available in one of the several reasonably priced garages, new restaurants competing with established mainstays. The downtown is alive. Culver City has become a hotspot destination in the 21st century. It is no longer LA's best-kept secret. It's more up-and-coming and trendy. However, it is still possible to get away from the chaoticness of the city. Take a stroll or a jog down the flat residential streets west of Culver Studios, and it truly seems like you are outside the hustle and bustle of the city. The jacarandas and Chinese elms, or whatever those big shady trees are called, line the streets in front of the $2 million suburban homes. Drive straight west down Culver Boulevard to get dropped off at the best beach north of Orange County. Beyond the recently renovated City Hall, there is an eclectic, white-collar crowd that populates the city. According to Census.gov, only a quarter of the residents were born outside of LA County, and about half of the residents are white, with the other half of residents split among the remaining ethnic groups. According to a random guy at a bar, a lot of alumni from Big Ten schools, the big universities in the Midwest like Michigan, Penn State, etc., live in Culver City. At the farthest east end of National Boulevard are unique architectural buildings designed by Eric Owen Moss. Hayden Tract has been completely transformed over the last few decades into a one-of-a-kind industrial lot. Moss states that he works to highlight the original structure rather than replicate the cookie-cutter offices that are covered with paint and formica, as evident by his wrapper tower just across the border of Culver City in Los Angeles on the corner of Jefferson and National. The work of Eric Owen Moss, Thomas Ince, Harry Culver, and the other innovators is indicative of the types of representatives that Culver City chooses to highlight. Sure, Los Angeles is more glamorous. Yeah, the views of the city are better in the Hollywood Hills. And sure, the job market is way bigger in the City of Angels. But Culver City is the humble neighbor with a stunning resume.